Today you will see the three most intriguing alien abduction cases in Minnesota's history. In a cold and dark night, in Duluth, Minnesota, something inexplicable happened. A series of events that defied logic and human understanding. Prepare to dive into a terrifying journey, where reality blurs with the unknown. In this video, you will discover alien abduction stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. And in the end, we will reveal a shocking truth that will keep your attention until the last second. Our story begins with Emily Thompson, a young investigative journalist known for her courage and determination. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, Emily always had a passion for unraveling mysteries and bringing the truth to light. After graduating in journalism from the University of Illinois, she began her career as a reporter for a local newspaper, where she quickly stood out for her meticulous investigations and her ability to tell stories in an engaging way. When she heard about the abductions in Duluth, Emily knew she had to investigate. She had read reports of UFO sightings and alien abductions in various parts of the world, but something about the events in Duluth deeply intrigued her. The city, known for its tranquility and natural beauty, seemed an unlikely setting for such occurrences. However, the reports were consistent and too disturbing to be ignored. Emily arrived in Duluth on a cold autumn morning. The city was covered by a dense fog, and the air was filled with mystery. She felt a chill run down her spine as she drove through the deserted streets, feeling that she was about to discover something that would change her life forever. She began her investigation by interviewing local residents, but encountered initial resistance. People were reluctant to speak, fearing ridicule or, worse, becoming targets of more abductions. However, Emily was determined to uncover the truth. She knew that behind the fear and silence, there were stories that needed to be told. But before we continue, I need to know if you are ready to discover the most intriguing and emotional stories of the universe. Then, subscribe to our channel to receive all YouTube notifications and discover incredible cases in our next videos. Thank you very much for that. You won't believe what happened next, because the first person Emily interviewed was Sarah Miller. Sarah was an ordinary woman until the night her life changed forever. She described to Emily how she was taken aboard a UFO and subjected to painful experiments. Sarah reported that on a cold October night, while walking through the local park, she saw bright lights in the sky. It was a quiet night, with the sound of dry leaves under her feet and the soft wind whispering through the trees. Suddenly, the sky lit up with an intense, pulsating light, unlike anything she had ever seen. The lights seemed to dance in the sky, changing colors and forming hypnotic patterns. Then, she felt paralyzed. Her muscles no longer responded to her commands, and she felt an invisible force pulling her upward. Her body floated in the air, and she was taken inside a ship. The ship was enormous, with a shiny metallic structure and pulsating lights along its surface. Sarah felt growing panic as she was pulled into the ship, where she was placed on a cold metallic table. There, she was subjected to painful and invasive examinations. Tall, thin beings with large black eyes and gray skin surrounded her. They used strange, shiny instruments that emitted high-pitched sounds and intense lights. Sarah felt sharp pain as the beings performed experiments on her body. She tried to scream, but no sound came out of her mouth. The pain was unbearable, and she felt as if she were being torn apart from the inside. The beings seemed not to care about her suffering. They continued their experiments, extracting samples of blood, tissue, and even implanting strange devices in her body. Sarah felt a sense of desperation and helplessness as she was subjected to these procedures. She didn't know how much time had passed, but it seemed like an eternity. Finally, the beings finished their experiments and left her on the table, exhausted and traumatized. Sarah felt a wave of relief when the invisible force pulled her back to the ground, where she fell to her knees, panting and disoriented. She looked around, trying to understand what had happened, but all she saw was the darkness of the park and the lights of the ship disappearing in the sky. Sarah stumbled back home, feeling violated and traumatized. She knew that something inexplicable had happened, something that would change her life forever. And now, as she told her story to Emily, she felt a mix of fear and relief for finally being able to share her secret. Another secret that had been hidden for years was the case of Michael Davis, a local farmer who also had a story to tell. He described a night when he saw strange lights in the sky and then found inexplicable marks in his field. Michael Davis was a robust man, with calloused hands from hard work on the farm. He had lived in Duluth for decades, caring for his lands and animals with dedication and love. His farm was a peaceful place, where the sound of the wind in the trees and the singing of birds were the daily soundtrack. But everything changed on a summer night when the sky lit up with lights he had never seen before. It was a clear night, with a starry sky and a full moon shining over the fields. Michael was sitting on the porch of his house, enjoying the cool breeze after a long day of work. Suddenly, he noticed something strange in the sky. Bright, pulsating lights began to appear, moving in patterns that defied logic. They changed colors, from blue to green and then to red, forming circles and lines that seemed to dance in the air. Michael was paralyzed, watching the lights with a mix of fascination and fear. He had never seen anything like it. The lights seemed to be approaching, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, the lights disappeared as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the sky dark and silent again. The next morning, Michael woke up with a sense of unease. He decided to inspect his farm, hoping to find everything in order. But what he saw left him speechless. In his cornfield, there were perfect circles, as if someone had used a giant compass to draw them. The plants inside the circles were flattened but not broken, and there were burn marks on the soil around the circles. Michael approached the circles cautiously, feeling a mix of curiosity and fear. He touched the burned soil and felt the residual heat. It was as if something had landed there, leaving its indelible mark. He also noticed that his animals were agitated and frightened. The cows mooed nervously, and the horses neighed and stamped their hooves on the ground. It was as if something had deeply disturbed the peace of the farm. Michael decided to investigate further. He walked through the field, observing every detail, trying to understand what had happened. But before we continue, I want to tell you something else. If you subscribe now to our channel, comment "new subscriber" so I can send you a welcome message, okay? Continuing, it was then that he found something even more disturbing: strange footprints in the soil, as if something or someone had walked through the field. The footprints were large and deep, unlike anything he had ever seen. He followed the footprints to the edge of the field, where he found more burn marks and flattened plants. It was as if something had landed there and then departed, leaving a trail of destruction. Michael felt a chill run down his spine as he tried to understand what had happened. He knew he had to tell his story, even if it seemed unbelievable. When Emily Thompson arrived at Michael's farm, he was ready to share his experience. He showed her the circles in the field, the burn marks, and the strange footprints. Emily listened attentively, taking notes and photos of everything. She knew that this was an important piece of the puzzle she was trying to solve. "What happens when the lights appear?" Emily asked, intrigued. Michael replied with a haunted look, "The most incredible abduction story you've ever heard." He reported that after seeing the lights, he found perfect circles in his cornfield, as well as burn marks on the soil. He also mentioned that his animals were agitated and frightened that night. Michael described how the lights in the sky seemed to be approaching, and how he felt an invisible force pulling him upward. He was taken inside a ship, where he was subjected to painful and invasive examinations. The beings that surrounded him were tall and thin, with large black eyes and gray skin. They used strange, shiny instruments that emitted high-pitched sounds and intense lights. Michael felt sharp pain as the beings performed experiments on his body. He tried to scream, but no sound came out of his mouth. The pain was unbearable, and he felt as if he were being torn apart from the inside. Finally, the beings finished their experiments and left him on the table, exhausted and traumatized. When Michael woke up, he was back in his field, disoriented and with strange marks on his body. Emily recorded everything. Now, I need to remind you that if you subscribe to our channel, you help us reach our goal of the first 1,000 subscribers. Can I count on you? Thank you very much. What you are about to see is incredible. Tom Brown, a local police officer, was investigating the abduction reports. He showed Emily the files of similar cases that had occurred in the region. "A case that will leave you perplexed," said Tom, as he showed photos of strange marks found on the victims' bodies. Tom Brown was a dedicated officer, known for his integrity and determination. He had served in the Duluth police force for over a decade and had seen it all. However, the reports of alien abductions were something completely new and disturbing to him. When Emily Thompson arrived at the police station, Tom was ready to share everything he knew. He led Emily to a file room, where he kept all the documents and evidence related to the abduction cases. The room was filled with folders, photos, and notes, all meticulously organized. Tom began to explain that in recent years, several people had reported similar experiences, but the police had no concrete explanations. "Look at this," said Tom, opening a folder and showing Emily a series of photos. The images showed strange marks on the victims' bodies, perfect triangles and circles that seemed to have been burned into the skin. The marks were precise and symmetrical, something that could not have been done by accident. "These marks appear on all the victims," Tom explained. "They are always in the same areas: backs, arms, and sometimes legs." Emily examined the photos carefully, feeling a chill run down her spine. The marks were unsettling, and she knew that something very strange was happening. Now, you also need to know that if you leave a like on this video, YouTube will see that you liked it and will suggest this video to more people. And don't forget to subscribe, so you receive notifications of new videos and help our channel. "Can I count on you?" Tom continued to explain that, in addition to the marks, the victims also reported memory loss and disorientation. Many of them woke up in places different from where they had last been seen, with no memory of how they got there. "Here is the report from one of the victims," said Tom, handing Emily a sheet of paper. She describes being taken aboard a ship and subjected to painful experiments. The beings that abducted her were tall and thin, with large black eyes and gray skin. They used strange, shiny instruments that emitted high-pitched sounds and intense lights. Emily read the report carefully, feeling a mix of fascination and horror. The description of the beings and the experiments was consistent with what Sarah Miller and Michael Davis had reported. She knew she was on the right track, but there were still many unanswered questions. Tom showed Emily more photos and documents, each telling a similar story of abduction and experiments. He explained that the police had tried to investigate the cases, but always encountered barriers. The victims often hesitated to speak, fearing ridicule or, worse, becoming targets of more abductions. "I know it sounds unbelievable," said Tom, with a serious look, "but something is happening here, and we need to find out what it is. People are afraid, and we can't just ignore this." Emily agreed, feeling a renewed determination. She knew she had to continue her investigation, piecing together all the parts of the puzzle. Tom offered his support, promising to help in any way he could. He showed Emily more files and photos, each telling a similar story of abduction and experiments. These surprising stories already deserve your comment, don't they? So, comment if you know any story like this. Your participation is very important to us. Thank you for that. Emily began to piece together the puzzle. She discovered that all the victims had something in common. They all reported seeing strange lights in the sky before their abductions. The truth behind this story is that something much bigger is happening in Duluth. Emily realized that the lights in the sky were a common pattern in all the reports. She decided to investigate further and discovered that the lights appeared at regular intervals, always at night and in isolated areas. And this is where the story gets really interesting. Emily discovered that the abductions were not random. There was a pattern, a purpose behind it all. While revealing the shocking truth, the aliens were collecting human DNA to create a new hybrid race. Emily found old documents suggesting that the aliens had been conducting genetic experiments on humans for decades, with the goal of creating a new species that could survive in hostile environments. In the end, Emily Thompson left Duluth with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain: something incredible and mysterious was happening in that small town. And the truth behind these alien abductions was yet to be fully unraveled. Watch now this video with an incredible story that is being suggested to you. See you next time. Thank you for subscribing.